What's up, everyone? Welcome to the daily macro update for Thursday, August 28th. And we continue to have S&P 500 new all-time highs post this NVIDIA earnings report, right up to the top end of the trading range, into tomorrow's PCE number, which is set to accelerate not only this month, right, or not only in July, for the July print being reported tomorrow, but also for the August print being reported in September. And so, despite all this, the market is still pricing in a 25 basis point cut, even though inflation is about to get out of control here. So, what does this mean? Well, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen, my recent video that I just published, as well as the title of this video saying, "Are you prepared for the next dollar devaluation?" And uh, yeah, this is happening at the same time where, even though we're having a bit of a rebound in growth where it's not as bad, you're still seeing, manufacturing activity not super strong, but, we're just relatively flat, right? In some cases, you are seeing recovery in on a if and that profits on things that were a lot of AI plays in our group that did well over the past day post earnings. Gold looks like it's about to have just a generational run up here. Similar to the consolidation period we saw back last year from the end of September to around January, right? So pretty much the entirety of the fall months was a nice little 5-month accumulation period for gold before it went up higher, and we're kind of seeing that right now. At some point, this will break through higher, but gold has been pretty much for the past 2 years and will continue to be one of our team's highest allocations. There's a lot of them that are doing well, including silver. I had someone send me a DM saying like, "Hey, do you think silver is going to keep going up? What price target do you have for silver? Is it going to be better than gold?" It's like, hold on. Both of them are in bullish trend. It's okay to own both of them, right? But with silver doing well as gold, I mean, that is more of a growthier or inflationary condition set. And then also as well, you're seeing a little bit of a sluggishness from Bitcoin. This might be more due to the liquidity environment right now, but Ethereum, and Solana continue to be in bullish trend. And then, S&P 500, not just crossing 6,500 but crossing it with authority here. Taking a look at the trading range for today, the top end of the trading range is 65.26, and so this is getting right into that there. Even if the core PCE inflation number tomorrow is below expectations, you're going to continue to see the S&P 500 do well, even though it's way above the 2% target that the Fed has for itself. Yeah, and so post earnings with NVIDIA, it did have a little bit of a slump here. I was just cracking up because, just the other day, or I think it was, let me see here. I think it was right after the earnings report. Let me see. Yeah, so I'm sure you guys are aware of the Kobasi letter. Kobasi. I'm not really sure how to pronounce the name there. But right after the earnings report yesterday for Nvidia, they posted this, and they they have it on a very small time frame, like the 1 minute or the 5 minute, and then they just zoom in. This is like a total post just to try and get clicks and views. But then when you zoom out, you realize like it's barely even down, right? So there was a lot of fear mongering going on into yesterday. Just a quick recap of the Nvidia earnings. We did see a considerable slowdown in the revenue growth, right? So year-over-year revenue growth, 56%. Compare that to last quarter, the Q1, which was 69% year over year. So going from 69% to 56, that's a considerable slowdown. But also too, when comparing to Q2 of 2024, so this is the 2-year stacked growth comparison. This time last year, the report was up 122%. And so going from 122% this time last year to 56% is a very large growth deceleration on a 2-year stacked basis. So yeah, definitely seeing a slowdown there in growth potential for Nvidia earnings. But in terms of the core CPI number, that continues to accelerate. In terms of the Kansas City or the Cleveland Fed's inflation nowcast. But you don't have to just take that word for it. You can also take a look at the U.S. break-even inflation rate for the 5-year, which is around 2.5. And so something that I noted in my most recent video was when you zoom out here, right? So this is the 5-year break-even inflation rate. This is the bond market trying to price in the average inflation rate over the next 5 years, right? And they have it around 2.5%, which if you continue to zoom out here, at the peak inflation print around March of 2022, that was around like 3.4%. And, historically, the pre-pandemic average, let me just zoom out even more here, just to give you a perspective since 2000 and what is this, 3? Yeah, so, really the average inflation level is around like 1.84 for the pre-pandemic break-even inflation rate. And so, having it at 2.5, that's definitely well into the upper bound that it's normally at. And what's interesting is, back last September, that was when the 5-year break-even inflation rate actually did get to that or near that average around 1.94%, which was good fuel for the Fed to cut rates. But as soon as that happened, as we know, we had the break-even inflation rate just skyrocket from there. Essentially, the bond market was calling out that the Fed made a wrong decision with their policy this time last year with the 50 basis point cut. And so now the Fed is faced with, a year later, we're heading into September now, and the market is fully pricing in that the Fed is going to cut by 25 basis points. Yet the break-even inflation rate, excuse me, is well above that 1.94% mark. And so you have the Fed cutting into accelerating inflation. Do you know what that is going to do to the dollar and what it's going to do to asset prices in the near term, at least? In the medium to long term, it might be setting up for something not so good. But do you know what that means in the short term? There's a reason why the S&P 500 continues to make new all-time highs, right? If the Fed is loosening in the face of inflation remaining sticky, yeah, asset prices are going to do well because the dollar is just going to keep getting devalued. And so, dollar hedges are going to be the name of the game here moving forward because, that's really what's happening. We're just having out of control government spending and out of control fiscal policies. And again, even if the Fed, even when the Fed cuts by 25 basis points, if bond yields as well as the break even inflation rate continue to rise from there, guess what? The Fed is not cutting anymore. And now you're stuck with a Fed funds rate around 4%. And yeah, then you're in some real deep trouble there in the medium term. And so this is all kind of unraveling similar to what we saw in previous condition sets. When you take a look at the 5-year break even inflation rate, or actually let's see here. Yeah, let's go to the 5-year break even as well as let's change that color to blue. Let's zoom out on the weekly. The Fed starts, right? So this is faster. They started cutting from the end of September to about February 20. So you had about 133 days and an acceleration in the 5-year break-even inflation rate until something broke in the economy, which was the pandemic. But even then as well, the Fed was cutting rates even before. If you guys remember this, back in 2019, the Fed was cutting interest rates, even though the market had no clue about the pandemic yet, or it had some inclination, but didn't know it was going to shut down the world economy. But it's interesting because you also had a yield curve inversion then. So you already started to see at the end of the 2019 term, at the end of Trump's first term, that the economy wasn't doing so hot. And so, it's kind of a similar setup right now. So as the Fed continues to cut and things start to deteriorate more, then this will start to come down too. So as soon as the 5-year break-even inflation rate starts to really plummet with, Fed funds rate, or the Fed starts cutting, that's when you'll probably see a large decline in things like gold, the stock market, Bitcoin. But until then, I mean, it's party on. And yeah, so we're just in that environment now where it's just time to hedge your bets on dollar devaluation until things break in the economy. And you don't really know how long that will last. Typically, it's a lot longer than what people expect. So who knows? But I mean, the exact opposite thing to do right now is to try and short the market, because people who have been trying to short the market over the past couple weeks have been punished. So yeah, just be cautious and aware of that. But all right, with that, we'll go ahead and take some questions here, and then we'll go ahead almost 30 people on Instagram here. Some people on TikTok. How's it going? Right now, we're doing a 7-day free trial, by the way, of our macro investing community. So if you guys would want access to that 7-day, at least just get a gander. That's a prediction. So I'm not really hearing. This says after a partnership with Trump Media, the whole entire thing with the White House trying to, be quote unquote crypto friendly. It's really just a scheme in order to force stablecoin issuers, excuse me, in order to force stablecoin issuers to hold treasuries by law, and or else they'll have to shut down. That will cause demand for treasuries. Do you buy gold ETFs or buy it directly? Both. Ishwar, yeah, just shoot me a DM with the word macro and I'll send it to you. I unfollowed Kobisi letter a few months ago. Yeah, I mean, he just tried. I mean, that thing. It used to be actually pretty good, but then it turned into just a clickbait type of like, trying to just capture, clicks and stuff like that. Good observation though. Do you think the market sees any meaningful pullback if the Fed doesn't cut? No, I don't think so. Jack Hammer, I appreciate the encouragement. Thank you so much for the algorithm there. Berkshire breaking to bullish here. It did go from bearish to neutral in our model, I think, like a few weeks ago. But yeah, Berkshire. Oh yeah, that thing's bullish now for sure. Is the money printer warming up? Jimmy, the money printer has been going on actually for the past 3 years in stealth mode. So for those who are unaware, the the reverse repo facility over the past couple of years has taken its $2 trillion of liquid assets and has drained those directly into the financial markets. And so this was stealth QE that's been going on. Even though in the news you hear about the Fed doing quantitative tightening, no, that has been masked by the $2 trillion drain. So yeah, this is like the stealth QE, the stealth money printer that's been going on for the past 3 years. Why do you think the market is up so much? Yeah, I mean, in fact, if you invert this scale and see when it bottomed, that's the exact bottom of the market. It's what's caused mostly this number here, which is net central bank liquidity to continue higher. Check out the bull market in oat milk. I love it. Yeah, that is interesting. $548 million market cap, a little small for my taste, but can't deny that bullish trend for sure. It's kind of getting close to the top end of the trading range. So, I mean, I personally would follow my rules here and just wait a little bit. But yeah, good call out there, Ricardo Lozano. Appreciate you for being a steady viewer, by the way. All right, let's go ahead and go on over to some of the Instagram comments here. What stocks should I buy? Stuff that's going to do well when the dollar is not doing well. Doesn't it make sense we experience a crash? Not really. Why would we experience a crash? And in 2026, we're expecting a huge market downturn. I don't know why people are expecting stuff. Just do what the market is telling you. Like having all these expectations of, oh man, this is going to happen here, this is going to happen there. A lot of the times, those predictions don't come true. So why try and base your portfolio positioning on market narratives of things that could happen in the future that probably will, but you don't really know the time frame, so you're just going to wait and cash? No, that's not how you make money. Would gold rise in Canadian dollar as well? I can understand USD because of devaluation. Yeah, I mean, definitely. With most Americans' wealth and housing and the dollar devaluation yet slowing acceleration, is there a chance that holds back inflation? No. You have to remember that there's different types of inflation, right? So you have monetary inflation, and then uh, you also have price inflation. Those are two different things. And then in the price inflation camp, you have demand side inflation, and then you have supply side inflation. So when people say the word inflation, I always ask, what type of inflation are you referring to? Monetary or price? And if you're referring to price, are you referring to supply side or demand side? What we've been experiencing since the pandemic has mostly been supply side inflation. And so, even though the Fed likes to take credit for raising interest rates and getting down inflation, really what happened was supply chains started to become more imbalanced as the world reopened back up from the pandemic lockdowns. And so, yeah, you're going to get inflation coming down because the supply side came back into balance, which has nothing to do with interest rates. They just wanted to make it seem like they were doing something. There was no reason for the Fed to hike rates the way that they did, because when you increase rates, what you're doing is you're just destroying the demand side inflation. But the inflation that happened wasn't even from the demand side at all. What is monetary inflation? Well, that is money printing. Now, monetary inflation can sometimes, and a lot of the time, front run price inflation, sure. But you think of it like, I don't know, think of it like loading up a car with gasoline, right? And so monetary inflation is when you fill the tank up in your car, right? So there's potential there. And then once you step on the gas and actually translate that gasoline monetary inflation into price inflation, that's where, you could see it translate there. But typically it does. Appreciate the comment there, Jimmy. But my our call outs in the group aren't there for me to like tell people what to do. It's for me to showcase our process, right? So yeah, I technically can't be on there saying that like I'm telling people what to do because I'm not a financial advisor, but I can definitely show you how I'm using my process and give examples. But you have to do with that information what you want. Can you share the AMD price range? Sure, we can do that. Yeah, so the top end of the trading range for AMD is $176.88, and the low end is $155.74. What are your thoughts on NVIDIA earnings? We covered this already, but I can just quickly repeat it. You had a large revenue deceleration. So year over year revenue growth was 56% year over year. compared that to the previous quarter, that was at 69%. So, 56 is less than 69. So that's a deceleration. And then when compared to Q2 of last year, so the 2 year stacked growth comparison, last year around this time, you saw 122% year over year revenue growth, whereas this time it's only 56. So the 2 year stacked growth is showing a very large deceleration. How's gold looking? Bullish on gold. If NVIDIA taps the low end of the trading range, are you buying? Well, is NVIDIA in a bullish trend? Yes. So if something that's in bullish trend reaches, if something's at the if something's bullish trend and at the low end of the trading range, what does the process say to do? Execute. Great questions. Great questions. Are you buying the stock market? Are you buying gold via the stock market or physical gold? You can do both. You don't have to just do one or the other. Do both. Marvell Technology. Somebody asked this. Marvell Technology. Yeah, it's in bullish trend. It's lost a little bit of trend strength though. But yeah, it remains bullish. Might buy this on the open. Yeah, this thing I think it just had earnings. And so, yeah, it looks like it's MRVL's at the low end of the trading range. This is a great time to buy some, sure. Good call out there. What do you do if price breaks the uptrend after you buy the low end of the trading range? Wait, what do you do if price breaks? Okay, so you're saying what do you do if you buy at the low end of the trading range but it breaks trend? If it goes from bullish to neutral, then I'm not going to buy anymore. I'm just going to wait and watch. If it goes from bullish to bearish, then I'll just get rid of it. Don't even think about it. If something goes from bullish to bearish trend, get it out of the portfolio, is what our process says to do. Those are the rules. A lot of people have a tough time just getting rid of things. But at the end of the day, like you can't have any emotional attachments to any of these 4 or 3 letter tickers, right? Yeah, so I see a lot of people asking me about narrative questions right now, right? So I see that someone asks about warships sent to Venezuela and its effects on Chevron. I see someone else talking about Nvidia with recent news on bullish China and the US. So whenever it comes to these types of like narrative things, you're probably seeing those from like a news source or anything like that. I don't really go off of news at all, right? Because the markets typically price in things well before any type of news events because, although insider trading is illegal, it does happen. And so if you're paying attention to the actual price charts, the price charts most of the time are able to not only price in any type of, news that you're finally reading about, but also as well they can move, and then after the fact, after they move, maybe a few days later, then you start to hear about stuff in the news about them. So I don't typically, like, if anything, like if I bought something and then the news causes it to jump up in price, while other people are reading that news headline and, FOMOing in, that's actually when I'm selling some, right? So yeah, I don't really tend to look at the news too much for making any type of, decisions within my process. But yeah, and a lot of those questions too are a lot of micro questions, right? So macro has to do with everything going on with growth, inflation, the different effects on correlations, sectors, all those different things. Whereas, some people ask me about microeconomic questions, which is like, what are your thoughts on warships in Venezuela and the stock Chevron, right? That's more of a micro question, which um, I think it's useful to know the answers to those questions. If you're looking to have a longer term position, but and I would like to have people who can eventually help me on my team as we start to continue to grow macro optics more and more. I would like to try and see about hiring some analysts, some micro analysts for certain sectors or industries, to where they can bring some insights. But um, we can still take a look at some of these different tickers. Yeah, so taking a look at Chevron, I mean, it's in a bullish trend still. When you take a look at the price of oil, looks like, let me see. The price of oil has kind of rebounded from its decline. So, if this starts to gain some strength here, then yeah, maybe Chevron is a good play. But yeah, I have no thoughts on tankers at all. What are your thoughts on IREN, the Bitcoin miner? Incredibly bullish. According to what you're seeing, do you think the yield curve will continue to bull steepen? Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially if you start to have the 2-year yield continue to drop. Yeah. Are you using historical average movements and the current implied volatility to estimate the range? Those are definitely part of it. Yeah, as well as other things for sure. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and end it there, everyone. I appreciate everyone for joining. Um, uh, with the new schedule, there's no daily macro updates tomorrow on Friday, but we will continue them with the Sunday macro wrap up on Sunday. And I know it's a long weekend with the Labor Day weekend. We're still going to go live on Sunday. So make sure that you guys are tuning into that. Have a great rest of your long weekend, and I will catch you on Sunday's Sunday macro wrap up. Bye, everyone.